07 AD, Rome crowned a god who prayed only to himself. His name was Caligula, a man who believed cruelty was the purest form of truth. Beneath marble ceilings and golden laurel wreaths, mercy became theater, and agony became art. He would kiss a woman's hand before destroying her. Families smile at a senator while condemning his bloodline. Rome thought it had found salvation. It had created a predator in the shape of a savior. If you value the historical records, subscribe. When the ledgers close, the bones still speak. He was born into the empire's bloodstream, son of Germanicus, the beloved general who had embodied Rome's virtue. Soldiers adored the boy who played among them in miniature music armor, calling him Caligula, Little Boots. From birth, he was trained to see power not as duty, but as spectacle. When Tiberius died, the empire erupted with joy. At last, a god of kindness music had come to restore the old world. The Senate opened the prisons. The crowds threw petals. For the music's first time in years, people dared to hope. Caligula's kindness was the first act of his cruelty, a test music to see how easily love could become obedience. He rewarded the loyal, then humiliated them in public. He elevated nobles, then stripped them bare before their peers. He turned intimacy music into theater and faith into a trap. He did not just kill, he made death wait. He made for last. Soon the city realized the pattern. Every gift was poisoned, music every embrace a performance. He would smile, Asmund begged for mercy, pause just long enough for gratitude, and then order the blade. His genius was not madness. It was precision. He understood what Rome itself had forgotten, that an empire built on conquest music needs cruelty to feel alive. At first, Rome called it rumor, just another emperor's indulgence exaggerated by jealous senators. But rumors in Caligula's Rome were not exaggerations. They were advanced warnings. The Senate had always been the theater of Rome's dignity. Marble floors, music echoing with oratory, the air thick with legal precision. Yet under Caligula, it became a different kind of music stage, a place where silence was the only safe language. The emperor began summoning senators and music their wives to the palace for consultations. These sessions often ended not in decrees but in humiliation. Wives trembling were paraded before the ruler who now claimed music divine rights over all mortal unions. The Senate's legal debates on marriage and morality were mocked in music, the most literal way possible, by being physically inverted. Caligula would interrupt discussions on music inheritance, laws with jokes about whose wife was most beautiful or most obedient. The laughter that followed was forced mechanical, a sound manufactured under threat. For those who didn't laugh, the punishment was ruin, confiscation of property, music, exile, or disappearance. Rome's most powerful men discovered that law itself could be violated from the inside out, turned into a performance side and mocked its own solemnity. In one recorded incident, he ordered the marriage of his loyal officer's music wife, Chinia, to be annulled so that he himself could marry her for a night. When the officer protested, Music Caligula reminded him that imperial desire was a decree stronger than any music senate edict. It was not lust, it was law. This was the chilling innovation of his reign, the fusion of legality and desire. What had once been the empire's proudest music invention, the codified law became the emperor's instrument of private gratification. Every forced union, every seized wife, every public insult was justified under the same principle that built Rome's greatness. The will of the sovereign was itself the law. Ancient sources describe his taunting tone during these humiliations. He would emerge from behind curtains at banquets mocking noblemen about their wives' performance. The laughter he demanded was more terrifying than any sword because it was an oath of submission. Rome's men bowed deeper with each music insult, proving that obedience was the only remaining virtue. The philosopher Seneca, who lived through this era, later wrote that tyranny begins where shame becomes entertainment. Caligula understood this perfectly. He weaponized shame, transforming the Senate from a council of rulers into a chorus of spectators. The men who once wrote laws now performed obedience in his theater of domination. In doing so, he discovered a profound political truth to rule Rome. One must not only command its bodies, but also its definitions. If the emperor could music redefine a marriage, redefine decency, redefine justice itself, then every music act of cruelty became legally sanctified. The result was a new kind of governance, one that did not need armies to enforce compliance. It relied on humiliation. Every senator who endured music, his wife's violation and silence became part of the system's self-perpetuation. To resist was treason. To suffer quietly was proof of loyalty. Behind the spectacle of sexual excess lay a terrifying bureaucracy. Imperial scribes recorded the music, gifts, and favors of women taken from noble houses, classifying them like property transfers. A wife could vanish into the palace one night and return legally diminished the next. The documents of empire reflected not the chaos of madness but the precision of accounting. Even religion bent beneath music this perversion of law. When Caligula declared himself the living Jupiter, divine marriage itself became his legal domain. He claimed the right to bless music or desecrate any union under heaven. In the emperor's mind, Jupiter had many consorts. So too would he. His decrees on sacred chastity were written in the same ink as his private invitations. The line between divine authority and personal lust dissolved completely. For the people of Rome, this was not merely scandal. It was revelation. They saw music that the empire's entire hierarchy built on law and ritual could be turned against them with a single command. Every system, marriage, property, religion, proved fragile once. The ruler's desire entered the equation. Yet, there was something even darker beneath the political mechanics. Caligula's actions were not random cruelty. They were experiments, tests music, to see how far Rome's conscience could bend before breaking. Each public violation was a question posed to the collective morality of the empire. Will you still obey? Will you still believe in the sanctity of law when the law itself become obscene? And Rome answered yes. Through silence, through applause, through taxes paid, temples maintained. The empire validated the system that desecrated it. When the Senate assembled, every man knew what had happened in the palace the night before. They signed decrees, adjusted budgets, and delivered speeches about divine music favor. The machinery of state turned smoothly, lubricated by fear. The Republic's corpse still moved, but only because humiliation had become the new form of governance. Caligula had proven music something eternal, that domination need not rely on visible violence. When the law itself is corrupted, the body becomes its own prison. The marble pillars still gleamed, the city still prayed, but Rome's heartbeat had changed rhythm. Beneath the robe's music and rhetoric, every senator carried the knowledge that the next music decree might strip him not only of power, but of dignity itself. If the law could be rewritten by desire, what would happen when desire demanded the sacred itself? By the second year of his reign, the lines between Caligula's sprit chambers and the administration of Rome had vanished. The palace was no longer a seat of government. It was a marketplace of flesh. Senators who once debated taxes now paid them in humiliation. Nobles arrived in ceremonial togas and left stripped of dignity. Their wives and daughters were named music, catalogued, and priced like merchandise. The ancient chroniclers wrote of these events with trembling restraint. They called it Caligula's house of state. To the emperor, it was efficiency. To the empire, it was revelation. He had realized that the body could serve as both currency, music, and message. What gold could not buy loyalty, fear, reverence, humiliation could. So he turned the palace into a brothel, not of secrecy, but of symbolism. Rooms once music used for imperial councils became perfumed chambers. Marble corridors echoed not with footsteps of envoys, but with muffled sobs. Invitations music were issued not as threats, but as duties. Wives of senators, noble matrons, even priestesses, were ordered to serve guests in war of the divine Caesar. And they came because refusal meant treason. Coins clinkered in on polished marble as men of Rome, soldiers, merchants, even ambassadors, were instructed to pay for entry. The money went to imperial coffers. Caligula's agents recorded music every transaction, turning degradation into accounting. The empire's treasury drained by music, endless games and monuments found new liquidity through forced vice. It was taxation by body, an innovation Rome had never dared imagine. The emperor's motives, though wrapped in madness, carried a cold logic. By erasing the boundary between public and private, he dismantled music, the last defense of Roman morality. There could be no virtue left to oppose him once every virtue had been sold under music his roof. The symbolism was deliberate. Every man who entered the palace to pay for pleasure knew that he was also paying tribute. Every woman music who served knew that her body was now part of the state's revenue. The humiliation was collective. Roma Selfu was being prostituted. Ancient sources describe music senators watching their wives serve strangers while the emperor stood laughing, tossing coins like blessings. When one nobleman wept openly, Caligula is said to music-hap told him, "Why grieve, senator? You should thank me. Your household now serves Rome." It was not lust. It was governance. The brothel was bureaucracy, the bed a throne. He even issued tokens music bearing his image, small bronze discs used for admission to the House of Jupiter. Archaeologists later found similar objects near Palatine Hill marked with inscriptions suggesting regulated access. Each carried the emperor's profile, his smirk immortalized beside the word divas, the divine. It was as if Rome's gods now music stamped consent onto every act of defilement. Witnesses say that during these nights, Caligula would walk the corridors in disguise, a hooded spectator to his own music spectacle. He would pause at doorways, watching senators kneel. Not in debate, but in submission, whispering prayers that were indistinguishable from moans. He wanted to music see if power could survive its own degradation, and it did. Because even this system worked. The treasury refilled.